And it also really annoys the people that are filming when I'm walking around like this. So, hi folks, my name's Jason Hunter. Thank you so much for having me in this fabulous building that was part funded by the Dutch. Working closely with our friends and neighbours. My name's Jason Hunter. Some people know me as the middle guy from Three Blokes in a Pub. We do an online YouTube blog. A friend of mine, Graham, has travelled to every single country on the planet without flying. He's crossed a lot of land borders. He's been in and out of a lot of ports, a lot of cargo ships in and out all over the world, including 54 countries of Africa. I didn't even know there were 54 countries in Africa. So he and I have been banging backwards and forwards on social media. One day he said, Jason, look, no one's listening to newspapers anymore. No one's listening to the television about politics. They're not listening to the politicians. They just go down the pub and they listen to Dave, and they vote how Dave tells them to vote. He said, why not I get my video camera and I'll come down to London, we'll get ourselves a couple of pints and we'll film a conversation about Brexit from your perspective, because I've lived and worked in a dozen different countries inside and outside the EU. I ran strategic market planning for the 5th largest steel company in the world. I was headhunted to the largest steel company in the world to run their commercial planning for their European operations. The Hong Kong government, as you mentioned, flew me out to represent them as an expert witness in an international court case. So I've been around the block a little bit, and I come at Brexit from one angle. Graham comes at it from another one. I said, yeah, absolutely, plus free beer. And he was coming down, he said, oh, we should get Kieran to come along as well. I what, Kieran the van driver? He said, yeah. Kieran's a white van man, a just-in-time delivery driver from Essex, and he's driven 1 million miles inside Europe. He's travelled, crossed every border from Gibraltar to the Arctic Circle, from the Ukraine across to the United Kingdom. He's in and out of Dover and Calais port every single day. He picks things up in Brussels and Paris and gets them back to companies in the UK that need something straight on the production line. So the three of us sat down in London in a pub in Westminster, and we filmed an hour's worth of chat about what does no deal Brexit mean? Because that's what everyone's talking about. We're going to get this no deal Brexit. And we stuck it onto YouTube, and I've never done anything like that before. We had 800,000 views and downloads on Facebook and YouTube and SoundCloud in 7 days. It's like, whoosh, I've never done anything like it. We said, oh, we've got to do another one of these. So the next one we filmed was the best possible Brexit you can get. And that was really popular as well. It's like, people like this stuff that we're doing, Three Blokes in a Pub. This is what people listen to. So then there was a lot of talk about WTO rules. We could just fall back onto WTO, it'll be absolutely fine. Now I know that's a really bad idea, mainly because not a single country in the world trades on solely on WTO rules. But we said, well, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. So we got on the plane, made some appointments, went to Geneva, and we spent 2 solid days in meetings with the World Trade Organization, with international trade experts, international trade lawyers, people who study international trade and geopolitics and how that all works. We spent 2 solid days with these guys. We filmed that, put 2 episodes online and about that. We've been to Brussels. The first meeting we had when we went to Brussels was in the office of the Director General of the President of the European Council. And from there we went across to the Parliament and to Guy Verhofstadt's team. We went across to the Commission, talked to some people in Barnier's team. So we're out there fact-finding, finding out the things that our investigative journalists in the UK and the media seem to have forgotten how to do. And then we just film. We have a discussion about it. We bring in experts to different episodes. There's about 16 or 17 episodes online now, Three Blokes in a Pub. So that's how we got here and how I got to be here with you fine folk today. But I want to take us back to last Sunday, because a lot's happened this week, but let's go back to last Sunday. Because people say, what's the EU all about? And a lot of people say, well, freedom. You know, we can travel, we can live, we can love, we can work in any of 28 different countries on our continent. Some people say that. Other people say, oh no, it's the biggest trade bloc on the planet, we've got frictionless trade, it really helps to boost our economy. But let's go back to Sunday. Last Sunday was Remembrance Sunday, when we remember the millions upon millions of our citizens and our friends and neighbours, neighbouring country citizens who died in the First World War and the Second World War. At the end of the Second World War, the European Union was created, or what is now the European Union, was created to stop that happening again. Peace is what the European Union is all about. They spent a significant amount of money, a significant amount of time invested in the Good Friday Agreement and the Belfast Agreement to stop the troubles between the north and the south of Ireland, creating, as peaceful as it is now, that I need to drum that home, because that's the fundamental principle of the European Union for me. Yeah, we get to live, love and work and travel and everything else. Yes, we get to trade with them friction-free, and all that's great. I'll get onto the international trade bit later. But for me, if there's one message you take away today, we are leaving a bloc that was created to make sure the 28 member states don't kill each other. We jaw rather than war. Because when you're trading with somebody, you have to talk to them. And you can't really talk to somebody if you're pointing a gun in their face. That's how the trade has developed within the European Union and how peace has been moved forwards. We haven't had any wars since the EU's been around. Certainly not on our continent. So normally in these talks I do three things. How the heck did we get here with Brexit? Secondly, what is Brexit? Does Brexit still mean Brexit? What colour is it? Is it red, white and blue Brexit now? Or what kind of Brexit? Where are we with Brexit? And then finally, what can we do about it? And a lot's changed over the last few days, but we'll come to that later. So how did we get here? Well, the Conservative Party, since they've been banging on for at least 2 decades. You've got one part of the Conservative Party that really, really hate the EU, adamantly against it, always have been, and they will fight against it to their dying day. Got another group of Conservatives over here that say, well, you know what, it's helping boost our economy. We're a party business, it's helping our economy, we get some workers over here, helping pay taxes, pay national insurance, pay the treasury, so it kind of helps it go. And they've been warring backwards and forwards for decades. So they said, do you know what, instead of us fighting and bickering amongst ourselves, we're in government right now, so what we'll do is we'll put it to the people, we'll have a referendum, in-out referendum on the European Union, and then that will fix the problems in the Conservative Party forever, once and for all. That worked well. So that's the reason why we had the referendum. Then the Electoral Commission appointed an official stay and remain campaign, an official leave campaign, vote leave. Vote Leave then decided that it would be a great idea to lie to the public and produce a whole load of adverts that were full of a pack of lies. Oh, okay, that's right. Then they overspent. They spent more money than they were permitted to spend by the Electoral Commission. They overspent by 10% to get a 2% vote swing. Then there was another unofficial Leave campaign called Leave EU. No one knows where their money came from, but even if you just look at the Aaron Banks donation of 8.3 million, 2.3 million of that was cash donation, which is legal and declared. Then there was a £6 million loan to the Leave EU campaign, a loan to a single issue, one-off campaign organisation. How on earth are they supposed to pay back £6 million? They've got to sell a lot of stickers to make a profit, to make £6 million to pay back. It was never going to be a loan. So that's questionable. Where did the money come from? Well, we'll find out in due course after the investigations of this. The leaders of the Leave EU campaign, they sat in a parliamentary select committee and gave evidence that yes, we lied, we deliberately misled voters in order to get them to vote to leave the European Union. So you got Vote Leave lied, overspent, broke electoral law, broke the law. You've got Leave EU breaking the law. Boris Johnson is saying David Cameron, the Prime Minister, was claiming that we're going to have World War III the next day if we vote to leave the European Union. George Osborne saying the economy is going to tank the day after the vote, we've got to have an emergency budget. The point is, nobody was really honest. The Remain campaign barely even bothered. And you think, if you think all of that is okay, then you don't believe in democracy. You just believe in Brexit. Yeah, because that's not a democratic vote by any stretch of the imagination. If the rules had been applied to the referendum, if it had been a general election, it would have been cancelled and they would have had to rerun the entire vote for a parliamentary seat. That's how bad it was. But the rules for referendums are different because referendums are what they call advisory and not binding on the government of the day. But that's how we got here. It was a real mess. So you can call it a frauderendum or a referendum, whichever you like, but it was just wrong. So where are we? Well, we're headed towards, right now, a no-deal Brexit. 11:01 p.m. on the 29th of March next year, the United Kingdom falls out of the European Union with no withdrawal agreement. And we talk about this deal or no deal. What is a deal? What kind of deal are we going to get? The only deal that's on offer is this withdrawal agreement, and that's in two parts. The first part is the actual legal technical separation of the United Kingdom from the European Union. And there's three pieces to that. We had to agree what happens to the rights of EU citizens living and working in the United Kingdom, and what happens to Brits living over in the rest of the EU, 27 countries. Secondly, the financial obligations. How do we settle those financial obligations? How much are they? And we've settled that on around about £39 billion. What's the payment plan? What year is it? How are we going to pay that over the next few years? How much are we going to pay in which year? And then the third piece is to make sure we never ever put a border back on the island of Ireland. And that is critical and fundamental. Now, we went over to Belfast and we filmed on the border when we were in Ireland. And we went down to Dublin and talked to some guys down there, which I'll touch on a bit later. So those are the three main things that need to be settled in the withdrawal agreement. Without that, we crash out with no deal, if we don't solve those things. There are some other bits and pieces, like geographical indicators. So can I make champagne in my bath in Barnsley in Yorkshire and call it champagne? And can I make a Cornish pasty in Paris? So there are things like that, but they'll just get way through. That'll be easy peasy. The big three are citizens' rights, the financial obligations that we need to pay and settle, and making sure there's never a border put back on the island of Ireland. Then secondary to that legal technical separation, the second part of the withdrawal agreement is a political declaration about what happens after we've left. What kind of future trading relationship and arrangement do we want to have with the European Union? Do we want this Canada plus plus plus? Well, Canada's pretty rubbish because it's not designed for the United Kingdom. If we took Canada's thing, it would be devastating for our financial services sector, absolutely catastrophic. So Canada, if we took the Canada deal and applied it to what we do in the UK, it would just devastate 2.2 million jobs.
80% services, aren't we?
Well, it's something like that, significant. It's a massive portion of GDP for financial services. Sure. So what they've done for Canada won't work for us. But what they did for Canada, obviously, is different to what they did for Japan. And the Japan-EU trade deal covers 1/3 of all the GDP on the planet. The EU are pretty good at negotiating trade deals. They've been doing it for 40 years. And they've got more trade deals than any other trade bloc that exists on the planet. They are really good at this stuff. And it's not just the EU 27 we leave, we also leave all their other international trade agreements that we have around the world. So they've got another 34 different agreements with trade blocs that cover multiple countries and bilateral agreements as well. So when you look at the other 60 countries, 60 countries, plus the 27 EU countries, that's the market we're about to give up by leaving the European Union. The advantageous ability for us to be able to sell and buy friction-free goods from the EU 27, and it makes it easier for us to work with other countries. But they don't just have trade agreements, because we've got no trade agreement with the United States of America. There's no formal comprehensive trade agreement between the EU and the USA. They just talk about TTIP. Remember that transatlantic trade and investment partnership? What a mess that was. And then Donald Trump came in and said, no, America first, not you guys. So he nailed that and cut that off straight away, pretty much. So what we have with the USA, because a trade deal, when you get to a comprehensive free trade agreement, that's the end of a journey. Like getting married, but before you can get married, you've got to be engaged. And you spend a bit of time being engaged and get to know more about it. You might move in together before you get married and spend a bit of time learning about each other. Before that, you go on a few dates. Before that, you've got a few phone calls. And it's a big, long process before you actually get married. Same thing with trade. Right now, we have dozens upon dozens upon dozens of cooperation agreements and framework agreements that make our trading with the United States much, much easier, thanks to our EU membership. And these have been negotiated over the last 20 years, 94. Yeah, 24 years, nearly a quarter of a century. And we keep developing new framework agreements that make trade easier. Things like X-ray containers as they're shipped across the Atlantic into the UK, and to Rotterdam, and back across to the States. So lots and lots of these things, not just trade agreements, but we lose access to all of this. How many people in the room have read Article 50?
Yes.
More people than in the House of Commons, I think, when they voted to allow Theresa May to revoke it. Because they couldn't possibly have read it. Yeah. Article 50 is really simple. It's half a page of A4, 5 simple paragraphs. Paragraph 3, the very first line of it says, all the treaties cease to apply to the member state that's leaving the European Union 24 months after you invoke Article 50. All the treaties cease to apply. So we thought, well, what treaties? There's over 750 different treaties that we are party to as an EU member state. One of those is something called EASA. Remember they talked about this scaremongering, Project Fear about aeroplanes not being able to fly if we leave with no deal. That's not true, that'll never happen. Of course they'll let us fly our aeroplanes into EU airspace. Well, one of the reasons they can't, under international law, is because of this thing called EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency. What that does, it allows agencies in the UK to certify our engineers and our technicians. So when a plane's landed at an airport, they can walk up to it and they can put fuel in it because they're qualified to do that. I couldn't do that because I'm not qualified. You know, but these people have got a certificate and a little hard badge that says, yeah, you're qualified to put the fuel in the plane. You've got a different level of certification for the engineer or the technician that's putting the sellotape on the wing to make sure it doesn't fall off. You know, it's doing the repairs or whatever they do. So they've got all these different levels of certification. As members of EASA, one of those 750 plus treaties, we lose our ability to certify our engineers to refuel planes and to fix them when they break down and to pump the tyres up when the air's run out of the tyres and they're sitting on the runway. So if we can't certify our engineers to do that, who's going to refuel the planes? Because the plane, when it takes off, if we've done it with uncertified engineers, if we let Joe Bloggs just straight onto the airfield to fill up a plane, of course that's not going to be. What else is he putting in? Does he put sugar in there? Does he put salt in the tank? Nobody knows. That's why you have these agencies that do all the certification. So when the plane then takes off and it goes into EU airspace, EU will go, hang on, that plane's not certified as safe to fly in our airspace. It might drop on a town in France. When you don't have EASA certification, your planes are not certified as safe to fly in other countries' airspace. That's one thing. Secondly, you've got things like the Single Skies Agreement. It's another one of those 750 plus treaties. The Single Skies Agreement gives us a username and a password, so our air traffic control systems can log into the EU member states' air traffic control systems and they can talk to each other. So we can see EU planes coming into the UK, we can see UK planes going out across to France, and they can see the same thing, and we make sure they don't crash into each other. That stops, right? 11:01 p.m., 29th of March next year with no deal. Then you've got the Open Skies Agreement. The Open Skies Agreement is between the EU 28 states, as is at the moment, and other countries around the world. It allows American planes to come and land here, Japanese planes to come and land here, Etihad Airways from Saudi Arabia, and all the other international airlines are able to come and land in our airfields because of the Open Skies Agreements. All of these we lose at 11:01 p.m. That's why people were saying, yeah, but planes might not be able to fly if we leave the EU. It's because all of the treaties cease to apply. I've just touched on 3 of them. There's a whole host more. Like truck drivers. You know, you've got a lot of people got driving licenses. You know, you've got car insurance to drive your car. But you can't drive a truck with a load of goods in the back. And if you've got different kinds of goods in the back, maybe you'll have hazardous goods. You get different levels of qualification. All of which are certified by a UK agency that says, yep, you've been tested, you've had your theory tests, your practical tests, you're okay to be able to carry hazardous goods. We lose the ability to certify our truck drivers to drive in EU member states as a third country outside the EU. So they'll have to get recertified back in the EU if they want to pick something up in Birmingham and drive it down to Rotterdam or to Madrid or Barcelona or wherever they have to be going. It's a bit of an issue.
We're all right though, aren't we? We've got 134 days left.
Yeah, but that's time.
133.
133, yes, 134 yesterday. I don't know what day it is today. So I'll come back to some of those other treaties in a little while. But things like your insurance company, if I'm a truck driver and I've got televisions in the back and I don't want them to get stolen when I go abroad, or if I have an accident and they all get written off, I'm insured. Not just me as a driver and the vehicle, but also the goods in the back. But British insurance companies lose their ability to passport that insurance across onto EU 27 member states after we leave the EU. Okay. So the truck's driven on the ferry, it's gone across to France, and he can't drive off because he's not insured at the other end. And also, you could drive illegally, of course you can. You could drive with no driving license, you get stopped for drink driving, you lose your insurance policy, you lose your driving license, obviously, when the police catch you. But you can still actually do it until you get caught. Not a good idea, though, if you're trying to run a business on that basis. So you have to get reinsured when you go across the European Union. That costs a whole host load more money. Kieran reckons it'll cost him another £3,500 a year per van within his business. He's a little business, he's not a massive corporation. He's a small white van man with a few vans. Yeah, he can't afford to do that. Then you've got all the customs paperwork and the export paperwork and the import paperwork and the VAT paperwork and the customs duties and the tariffs you have to apply and all the stuff that's going over there. You think, geez Louise, there's a lot of work in this. Do I really want to be selling to these guys anymore? But not only that, will our customers still want to buy from us, more importantly, when we fall back onto WTO terms? Because there's 164 members of the World Trade Organization. We went over to Geneva and said, okay, explain to Graham, who's a traveller rather than a trader, and so can you explain to Graham how these WTO tariff things work? And he said, well, every country in the world produces a list of the import tariffs that they want to set on things that they buy from other countries. So take exports for starters. I manufacture a bottle of water up in the UK or a widget. It costs my customer in Mexico £1 today because we've got a trade agreement thanks to our European Union membership. Now, when we're as a third country, we have no trade agreement with Mexico. My customers in Mexico, they can't buy this for £1 anymore because they have to apply a third country import tariff on all of the imports from all the other countries in the world where they don't have a kind of trade agreement with. And that would be the same to my customers in Canada and South Korea and Japan and Mexico and Brazil, all over the world. So that tariff could be anything from 4% if I'm selling in a private aircraft, or 78% if I'm selling in grated cheese from a UK producer. And then a whole different range in between. Because every country's got a different set of tariffs depending on the product that they're importing. And the reason they have that is to protect their internal producers, their internal industry, and their internal manufacturers. My back did a bit of work in the steel business myself over the years, and there are just steel plate. Yeah, there's over 3,300 different grades of steel plate, different thicknesses, different strengths, different qualities, 3,300 different grades of steel plate. In the UK, we make some of those types of steel plates and some of them we don't. So what we want to do is to protect the British manufacturers who make that particular grade. And say we need 200,000 tonnes of this particular type of steel. We need 200,000 tonnes a year, but our UK capacity is only 100,000 tonnes a year. So what we need to do is have very, very low tariffs on the first 100,000 tonnes of steel that we import from abroad, because the first 100,000 is covered by our own manufacturers, and the next 100,000 tonnes we have very, very low tariffs on, because we want to encourage people to sell us that particular steel that we need to support our other industries. But anything above that 100,000 tonnes we then apply a very high tariff to discourage other countries importing their steel into the UK. Because otherwise it will start to affect our manufacturers. If we import 200,000 tonnes with no tariff, why do we need to build it ourselves? Anti-dumping. So that's how these tariff things work. Now, the UK trades about 4,500 different product groups. Their product nomenclature, 4,500 different product groups. One of those product groups is steel plate. That's got 3,300 different grades within it, each of which will have a different tariff set on it. Once we've figured out exactly what we manufacture, which industries we want to protect, which ones we don't want to protect. So that's what this schedule of tariffs is, these schedules that we filed with the WTO. All 163 countries, members countries of the WTO, they've already done the analysis on their own home markets, and they produce a schedule of tariffs that they're going to apply based on country-specific quotas, because you might want to apply a different quota to Chinese steel than you might want to put onto American steel, because they're different qualities and different grades. So you've got CSQs and you've got tariff rate quotas, which are dependent on the volume of goods that are coming in from a particular thing. So all of the other countries, they've done this, and before you can actually really start trading on that safely, that schedule of tariffs, you have to get it agreed. But not just by having a majority vote. All the other members of the WTO have to agree that they accept your tariffs. Now you can trade on them before they're certified, because that's a certification process, they call it. You can trade on them, say this is what I want to do, these are the tariffs I want to charge. But what you find if they're not certified and agreed by all the other members of the WTO, then you'll find yourself in dispute. If you find yourself in dispute, it slows down any trade deals that you're trying to negotiate to try and get away from those WTO tariffs in due course. And the more you're in dispute, the less likely you are to be able to get away from those tariffs for your exports when you're selling your goods around the world. So it's really important to get your tariffs certified in most cases. So trying to avoid WTO, trading on the WTO is really, really important. And they give us
whilst you're on there, haven't Russia, the USA, Australia and New Zealand already lodged their objections?
Interesting, 4 countries you picked out. Did you pick those 4 specifically?
Well, because it was bound to be difficult. And the other 2, well, the other 3, because we were desperate to do trade deals with them.
Yeah. So the way that you can object to a country's tariff schedule, because what we've done in the UK, because instead of doing an analysis of all our industries in the UK, figure out what we need to protect and what we don't need to protect, what Liam Fox, in all his wisdom, did was went to the EU's schedule of tariffs. So we'll have all of those schedules, we'll copy it out of the EU letterhead, and we'll put it on the Department of International Trade, it matches this government letterhead paper, and we'll send that in as our schedule. Problem is, that schedule for the EU is to protect 28 different countries' manufacturing industries. And Spanish tomatoes, and Italian olives, or Italian olives and Italian, yeah. Anyway, lots of different products across the whole of the European Union. It works for 28 countries, but it doesn't work for one. And he was so lazy that not only did he just copy and paste it straight in, he forgot to change the euro symbol to a pound symbol. I kid you not. The guys in Geneva, they looked at this and they went, "No, that's the same. It's exactly the same." And literally it's just on different letterheaded paper. So Liam Fox has been around the world twice in the last couple of years. And our proposed schedules to the WTO have been objected to by a number of different countries. I think it's about 12, it counts up about 12 countries that have objected now. One is the United States of America, who Liam Fox wants to consult a new trade agreement with, and they're already objecting to what we've proposed. Australia, New Zealand, and the other one is the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is sort of Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, that part of the world. And they told us that, well, we're not really interested in a trade deal with you. We've just signed a new one with the European Union. So come back in 5 years. We're going to spend the next 5 years really developing that. So the Department of International Trade, the sum total of Liam Fox's work is to copy and paste the EU's tariffs and then produce 4 consultations on new trade deals around the world. This is the guy that said he'll have 40 new trade deals ready to sign at midnight on the 29th of March next year. The sum total of all of the trade consultations he's doing on the DIT website, 4. 3 of them have already objected to our WTO schedule.
Yeah.
But the guys at the WTO, they gave us an analogy. They said that other countries around the world, they look at the European Union like a bait ball of fish. You know the David Attenborough documentaries where all these fish swimming around really protecting each other. There's all these sharks swimming around the outside waiting for one big fat juicy fish to swim away by itself. They said they will swoop in and they'll take bites out of your economy. They said other countries are telling us this right now. They're in and out of the same rooms we were in, the same building we were in every single week. Yeah. And they're looking at Brexit. Take Wilbur Ross, he's the Secretary of State for the US Department of Commerce. He said Brexit is a God-given opportunity for other countries to take pieces out of the UK economy. That was his words, a God-given opportunity for other countries to take pieces out of our economy in the UK. And he said other countries are the same. And we started talking about trade deals. Well, what do you think? What are our chances?